It's the Friendly Fire Show, episode 194 for the middle of March 2022. It's been a couple months, but we'll get into the reasons why. We're going to skip all the news, basically, that's happened since then, but, like, recapping quickly, like, everybody acquired everybody else. Sony owns Bungie now, or will own Bungie. Microsoft and Activision Blizzard. Tencent got in some stuff there. Like, it's been crazy. And sorry, we've just had life getting in the way. I'm one of your hosts, Steve Wright. Joining me, as always, is another co-host, Ben Salter, who's in my top left, if you're watching the video, which you can get on YouTube/Stevivor. Normally, we're every fortnight on Twitch TV/Stevivor, but we're kind of giving that a miss, and we'll get into those reasons alongside some other stuff, but let's not do that right now. And joining us, because we have basically every game that's come out in the last 2 months to talk about, are two special guests, Luke, Lawrie, and Hamish. Lindsay, this is going to be a long hour, but we're going to try to keep it to an hour. Good hello. Now, before we
The world's on fire, and it's flooding in Australia. Like, it's hectic.
Luke, like, you're the only one really affected by floods. Are you underwater? Are you good?
No, I'm like 3 stories up. I'm having an invasion of the ants at the moment, so that's what I'm dealing with at this stage.
The ants just have to keep, like, going up a floor after a floor as the water continues to rise, kind of
Pretty
thing?
much, yeah.
Right. Well,
that's where we're at.
That's good. Ben Salter, you've gotten engaged since we've last spoken. I think if you were watching Twitch the one time, we maybe almost outed it by accident because I had the audio turned on, but congratulations to you and Claire.
Well, thank you. Fortunately, the listener wasn't aware of what we were talking about, and I think it might have been Hamish, the listener, so fine, doesn't matter. Yeah, all good.
Yeah, who's Ben?
Yeah, exactly.
And I asked Hamish to marry me, and he said no, and it's not awkward or weird or anything. It's fine. How are you, Ham?
I'm getting there.
You're still reviewing a whole bunch of games. You've been writing up a
Just
bloody
one to go.
storm. So we'll get into that. There's tons to talk about. I think we're going to start off with the game that you played first, Hamish, because we have, 7 or 8 games to talk about. And the first one I want to talk about is yours. It's Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Say that 7 times fast. You've done a preview ahead of the game's release later this month. So take it away. What do you think?
I think it's more Borderlands. So obviously it's kind of like a follow-up to that super popular Borderlands 2 DLC, Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, which is like pretty much one of the most, I think, revered Borderlands DLCs and probably the best Borderlands content they've made.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really. And it captures that same tone. I mean, it's just more Borderlands humor, which is potty humor mostly, but still relatively funny when they kind of spin a D&D type bent on it. It's almost like watching the episode of Community when they do the D&D stuff, but it's just like you're playing that instead. There's a whole bunch of stuff coming to it that we didn't get to see, which is a bit of a bummer. A lot more character customization, which is a bit of a first in terms of what your person actually looks like, not just like the clothes they wear. And yeah, a lot of really cool stuff for Borderlands fans in particular, and for people who like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff too. So it looks like it could be worth a whirl, I think.
I saw a lot of the endgame stuff, which is, there's this huge emphasis on trying to keep people playing the game, which I guess if you like playing Borderlands or the Tiny Tina variant and Dungeons and Dragons, and you didn't have everything else to play, like, I guess it's only a bonus to have more stuff to do rather than it feeling stale.
Yeah, I mean, everything is games as a service these days anyway. And I think Borderlands really suffered with that because, like, you have, like, in the other ones, you have true Ultimate Vault Hunter mode and stuff like that. And those other, like, endgame, but you're just playing the game again. And I think this time around, they're actually trying to make it so you're not doing exactly the same content over and over again, which is good. It's a good step. But not everything needs to be games as a service, as other stuff is teaching us at the moment.
Anybody keen to play this? Like, I'm not huge on the Borderlands humor, to be honest. I'd probably give it a miss. Luke's nodding his head, though.
Yeah, I'm a big Borderlands fan. I did a trip a couple of years back to Gearbox to see Borderlands 2, I think it was. And everything they've said about like the Borderlands series going forward has been like really in the right direction. I think like Hamish is talking about, it hasn't been a games as a service, but at the same time, like they didn't do that the last time around with Borderlands 3, and I think it sort of worked for that style of game, but at the same time, you like kind of wanted more out of it. And Borderlands 2 did that so well with the whole, expansion content. DLC was so big back then, and the Assault and Dungeon Keep was such a like amazing piece of DLC that took that core concept and evolved it and took this spin on it that was so elevating in terms of what we normally see with DLC, that I think if they can take that sort of approach with this upcoming game, I'm absolutely sold on it. Like it's the idea of how many guns can we do in a weird, wacky way, but this time it's like spells, right? And so I'm all about that.
Nice. And I guess I was going to say, if you can tear yourself away from Elden Ring, but you're probably one of the few people in this world that probably can tear himself away from Elden Ring, because I think you're probably an Elden Lord by this point, whereas I'm definitely just an Edge Lord. That was a funny joke in my head.
Cool.
Luke, I think you should kick us off with the Elden Ring chat, because I think probably you're 100% for it. I think Hamish is pretty similar to your thoughts, I would imagine, but Hamish can speak to that.
Yeah, so I've reviewed Elden Ring. I've reviewed From Software games for Stevivor for a while now. I did Dark Souls 3, I did Sekiro, and now Elden Ring. I came into the From Software genre of games maybe a little bit late. I got sent a media kit for Dark Souls, the first one, when it came out. Fired that up, died a bunch, and was like, this is garbage, this game. I am good, because it was like, I feel like it was the end of the year when they sent that thing out. I was like, this is stupid. Talked to a couple of other freelancers when Dark Souls 2 was coming out and completely changed my tone. I jumped into it, started playing, and absolutely fell in love with the game. It was my game of the year at the stage. And then since then, I think every game they've put out that From Software has developed, they've just like been on a roll. They have evolved that series in such a way that has elevated anything we've seen in terms of game design, level design, like everything that they're doing, and sort of pushed that genre in a completely different direction to games that we play these days. And it's the type of games where, especially looking at Elden Ring, it being an open world game of being like, hey, here's the thing you need to do. I'm going to show you where you need to go and do that. Whereas Elden Ring is an open world game and it tells you nothing. It gives you a door and an elevator you need to go up, and it's like, fucking good luck. And so can I swear? I don't know.
You did, it's fine. It's a swearing podcast, boys.
You leave this like underground cave, run into a tree sentinel, get absolutely whooped, and you're like, I probably shouldn't go there anymore. Like, that's a bad idea. Any other game would like put a HUD marker up and it'd be like, you've got to go over here and like collect this thing. Like, Elden Ring is not about that. It's a completely open world game that just lets you explore. Going into Elden Ring, the sort of comparison that I heard, I was pretty on the down low with watching gameplay footage and all that sort of thing. But the one sort of comparison I kept hearing was a Breath of the Wild. And I think that it is very much like on that note in terms of you just kind of do the tutorial area, you get out there and you explore. You're doing dungeons, you're running through catacombs, you're fighting bosses, you're looting items, and you're pretty much just fighting things and discovering the world for yourself. Something really interesting that I think that like Ubisoft has done over the past couple of years in their games has been this exploration versus guided mode. And I've played a bunch of their games recently where I've just kind of turned off all the HUD elements. And like Ghost Recon, I think it was Wildlands, did a really good job of like not the game necessarily, but the quest system being like, hey, you've got to go 300 meters northeast to the giant rock in this section, and you would just kind of explore it and trying to naturally find this location. And I think we've gotten too engrossed in being told where to go and what to do, and this is such a fresh direction in terms of a type of game design where it's like you kind of just explore and you figure it out for yourself, and you probably get there eventually. You're gonna die a lot, but if you persist and you play to the game's sort of rules and regulations, you're probably gonna have not a fun time, but like a time where you'll eventually beat something and have some sort of sense of accomplishment, as opposed to just a checklist where you're ticking boxes off a long list of things you need to do. And so I think that at the end of the day, Elden Ring is basically Dark Souls 4 in an open world. It is the same gameplay. It's the same sort of combat system, same leveling up system. It is just in an open world environment. And it's absolutely one of the best experiences I think people will have this year if they persist with what it is trying to do.
Nice. Now, before I get Hamish in, I just want to ask you a question just because it came to mind. You were talking about all the stuff that you've reviewed, like from Software Land, and you didn't say Demon Souls. Is that because it's a Blue Point joint, or like just because it kind of ties into some of the stuff that we'll get into eventually, like all the vitriol on Twitter's like, oh, like they didn't give Souls games good marks. Like, where do you sit with that, Luke? Just, I guess, for our benefit of knowing.
Yeah, so I came to Demon Souls late. I played it for the remaster?
I think it's a remake. Because it's, we're calling it, whatever. The Blue Point one on PS5 is what we're talking about.
I gave that, I think, a 7.5 on Stevivor. I know it's a bad score. And in terms of, I think you can kind of look at that in terms of like one of their the first game they sort of put out in this type of genre, third-person action game, RPG, and all of the lessons they've learned since then. And absolutely, it's a game that I think people should check out. But you play like Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro. Like there's absolutely a level of learning and things that they've taken from that original game and improved upon, whether it's level design, combat, accessibility, which is something that's huge, massive in Elden Ring. And I think at the end of the day, yes, it is a great game, but when you compare it against those other ones and being a 10-year-old game, it does sort of show its age a little bit.
Yeah, just in design.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, sorry. Yeah, accessibility in Elden Ring is phenomenal. And the fact that they have found a way to look at difficulty. Sorry, I'm talking about difficulty accessibility, not accessibility in terms of, getting more players into it if they're disabilities or things like that. I'm talking about difficulty.
Like you're not talking increased, font sizes or like bringing in sign language support. Yeah.
Right. The awesome stuff that we've seen in other games.
That it could still use, but yeah, anyway.
Sure, yeah, but like the idea of how do we enable more people to play this on a difficulty level without having easy, medium, hard, very hard, like how do you do that? And the things that they put in this game are just, from a game design standpoint, are just phenomenal. Giving players the ability to summon other characters in the world, being able to not just be in a linear gameplay, like a hub world where you're going down this specific area, being able to like just interact with the world a lot more. There's just so many things that they do that once you take a step back and look at it, you're like, all right, yeah, they actually took that difficulty feedback and incorporated it into the game in such like a much more interesting way than most developers would do. They would be like, let's put the hard mode in and we'll just tweak the health bar on this boss. And it's like, no, like From Software go in and they give you more tools for the player to use. So I don't know.
And I think that's
I
why
think
I
Steve,
like
you
it.
probably had a much easier. Like I've talked to a bunch of people recently that are like, hey, this is my first From Software game, and like I'm doing all these things in the game that allows me to play it a lot better.
Oh yeah, I'll touch on all that, I reckon, but I feel like Hamish is a veteran as well to the Souls experience. Is that accurate, Hamish? And you probably had a lot of chance to dip in, but I'm keen to hear your thoughts. And then I'm going to go to Ben. I have like a journey from like veterans to people who can't play Bloodborne as an example. But anyway, Hamish, take it away.
Well, I had a similar start to Luke. I played Dark Souls 1 on release because I was like, I had a mate who was massively into Demon Souls, and he's like, you got to get Dark Souls, you got to try it. I fucking sucked. Like, that game was hard, like properly difficult, and I didn't understand it, and I died over and over and over again to that boss on
that first boss that you're not supposed to fight.
Yep.
You're supposed to go right instead of left.
It's the tree sentinel. It's the tree sentinel.
I just died over, and I didn't get it, and so I stopped playing.
Yeah.
And I've never finished Dark Souls because of that to this day. I've got further since then, but came back to Dark Souls 3, loved it. I played a couple hundred hours of that game. Loved it sick, and I think you can really see, as Luke said, like the journey that FromSoft have gone on from Demon Souls through to Elden Ring, and Elden Ring has so many of the things from those other games in it. But refined. Like Dark Souls 2 was known for having too many groups of mobs that were just really small enemies that would overwhelm you. It was too slow, so they made Dark Souls 3 quicker, and they didn't have that as much. And there's all these other like lessons that they brought into Elden Ring, and it's just this. It's almost like all of their stuff kind of peaking and being a pinnacle at once. It's amazing. I love Elden Ring. I think it's great.
It's 3 games in one. Like Dark Souls is like a 30-hour game, and this is like I'm 105 hours in at this point. It's nuts.
I've just crested 60 something, and I feel like I've still got 3 or 4 bosses to go from where I am. It's crazy. I'm actually running out of steam. So,
and the thing is,
I was about 55 hours in, and I was like, I've got to be pretty close to finished, and I was maybe halfway at that point.
Oh my God.
It's insane.
The thing that I've learned about this, Ben, is that they're never going to say which bosses they're stuck on or anything about, because everything is a spoiler. Every single thing, you can't say the first initial of the boss, and I kind of respect that, but I'll get into that in a second too. Ben, you've tried a bit of Elden Ring, and I feel like you've kind of had your fill.
That's a generous way to put it. I played maybe 2 minutes. Okay. So that was when I realized again, like I played about an hour of Bloodborne, and I thought this is the worst game I ever played in my life. And I thought this feels exactly the same as that. Not interested. I'm going back to Mass Effect 2. So that's what I've been doing. Nothing in 2022, basically.
Well, there you go. All right, so I was exactly the same. It's weird because Bloodborne is probably one of my favorite games in terms of games I've written reviews for, not in terms of games that I enjoy, because I hated it.
What a scandalous headline there is right there. Guy who gave Bloodborne a 7 says it's his favorite game.
Favorite game that favorite review that I've written, one of them. Because I literally, I spent 8 hours, and I barely scratched the surface. I am not a patient. I'm a button masher, and I'll fully own it. I play the same sequence over and over and over and over and over and over again, and I kind of made this cool story up because I don't know what the story is, because I got probably 20 minutes in actual game, but I'm like, here's I understand the appeal, and that's what I'm trying to get at. A 7 is, it's really good. It's not for everybody. An 8 is pretty much for everybody, but we're not focusing on our scale right now. Tried Sekiro, same kind of thing. It feels like you're hitting your head against a wall. And Elden Ring, I'm like, well, it's gonna be exactly the same. And I, jumped off the cliff, even though I read the little thing on the ground that's try jumping. I'm like, well, this seems like I'm gonna die, and I didn't die that particular time, but there's so many things on the ground that you just can't trust that, who knows. Got to the Tree Sentinel, got wrecked. And that's, I guess this is the big difference between Elden Ring and every other open world game right now. If it was Horizon Zero Dawn as an example, or Forbidden West, or whatever the new one's called, there'd be a thing on your screen being oh, you're underleveled, you shouldn't try this, flashing at you. And the Tree Sentinel just destroys you, and it doesn't say that, but you understand, okay, I don't need to try that again. Like, I didn't even get a hit in, and I like one hit killed. I'm going to do something else. So you go explore, you go find things out. I guess my criticism is because I'm not a huge From Software game player, there's a lot of stuff that is just, because it's not holding your hand, it's kind of a little bit inaccessible. So I fully admit to going to guides to be like, I don't know how to do this or that. I don't know what this is. I need a little bit of guidance. Like, if I can't, if I get to the boss, who's the real big first boss that starts with M, spoilers, like, I know I can't beat that thing, but I don't kind of know what to do now. So I need a little bit of guidance. Like, that kind of got me going. And now I'm I don't know, 35, 40 hours in. I've got, I don't want to say where I am, but I've gotten to quite a bit around the map. I think there's still a huge bit over in the northeast that I haven't gotten to. But I've got like cool armor from the volcano place. Like, I'm only saying one of the two words. I don't know if that's still spoilers.
Wow, okay.
Like with the
there's a
Invader
one now?
NPC quest. I've taken out a whole bunch of bosses and sub-bosses. Like, I went to guides in all the starting areas. I'm like, I'm going to kill every single boss I can find that has a big long red bar, and I'll get all these goodies that I don't know what to do with. So it's super accessible, because if you get stuck, there's something else you can go and do, and I've learned that quite well now. But also, you can summon your little wolf pack, or you can put down a multiplayer finger and summon someone who can help you. I found that weapon that has the OP ice stomp, so oh hell yes, I will spam that. I don't even care. You can call that a cheese, but I'll do that because I'm having fun finding new things to do and new things to try to kill and killing them, or else going, okay, I'm going to put a marker there and come back in 10 or 12 levels. My husband Matt was like, what should I play? I'm like, try this, and he had exactly the same kind of experience. He threw the controller one day. He's like, I'm never playing this again. And then an hour later, as we were getting ready for bed, he's like, you know what I could have done? I should have rolled and then parried. And it gets kind of wormed into your brain. It's just this weird world that you don't know anything about, but you want to keep exploring and keep finding more about, it's all really cool. I've never been this excited about a game that I'm not good at and want to get better at. It's good. It's very engrossing, and I never thought I'd consider Elden Ring as a Game of the Year contender ever, and it's pretty high up on that list for me right now. I still can't do a lot of things. I don't know how to aim a bow and arrow for the life of me. I can't figure out how to two-hand a weapon on a horse or off a horse. There's just things that I'm I don't know how to do this. And you Google it and it's do this. I'm well, I'm doing that, and I've just used all my potions. So I must be doing something wrong. But I'm finding ways around those things that I can't figure out how to do. So it's that's every bit about the game is this weird insurmountable challenge that when you do best it, it's the best feeling in the world that you don't get from beating a regular boss in any other game. It's no, I actually did this time. Me and maybe that guy who helped me. Thanks, Bong Ripper 69 from Xbox Live. You and me were a team. It's just really cool. And I'm babbling now, so Ben, I hope my rambling incoherentness made you want to jump back into Elden Ring and try it.
You've almost convinced me. I might try again, but I mean, there's too many things to play. I've got to play Mass Effect 3. So that came out last year, if I'm right. No, but more seriously, I haven't played Horizon yet. I've got to play Kirby. I want to play Ghostwire Tokyo. There's all these things coming out. It's that February, March, which is always packed. And everyone moves their game to now because they're we'll get out of the holiday season and we'll get our own exposure. And then, as has happened to Horizon, they all just get overshadowed by the good one. So, too busy.
Yeah, this year's insane.
This one to me feels like one that will probably take you most of the year. If you're you and I, Ben, maybe I'm not. I shouldn't be speaking for Hamish and for Luke, but if we kind of pick at it little by little, that's a good thing. But also, you need to kind of pick at it enough during the week or the month that you don't lose the skills that you kind of have to build up to get anywhere.
I remember going back to the DS3 DLCs and I just couldn't play them because I hadn't played the game for 6 months at that point, and I just got absolutely slapped by every boss in those. I was like, cool, great time. So,
well, So I've sacrificed playing Destiny 2, but Hamish, you had to play it because you reviewed it. So we'll
so
segue
hard,
out of Elden Ring and into another time sink, a potential time sink in the Witch Queen. Something that you called the best Destiny campaign to date ever.
Ooh.
Ever. I mean, that's actually a pretty low bar, really, when you think about it. But it is, like, for me, I think it is a campaign on par with, like, the best Halo campaigns. In terms of their actually telling the story in game. They are, like, designing a really cool world. They're wrapping up lots and lots of, like, story threads all at once. Basically, like, if you go way back to Destiny 1, there was whisperings of some of these characters that you're seeing rendered in game and fighting now. And for someone who's played it as long as we have, Steve, that's, like, really cool. Like, that journey to have gone on for 7 years now is great. And, like, they've introduced this legendary difficulty, which actually makes Destiny difficult, because previously it was a bit of a pushover of a game, really. Like, raiding was tough because you had to raid with people like Steve and
I know.
Steve.
I'm a button masher. We've established this.
No,
It applies in Destiny and in FromSoft games.
Like, raiding was tough, but the campaigns and stuff were just like fluff, essentially. But this time around, they've really focused on making an engaging campaign experience. And I spent 11 to 12 hours, which doesn't sound like a lot, especially when we've just been talking about Elden Ring, where we've sunk, like, way north of 60 hours into it already between, like, all of us. On Legendary, soloing every mission, and I had a blast. It was, like, pull my hair out frustrating at times. I got so angry, but it was great. I enjoyed every second of Witch Queen.
They're like
campaign.
The Legendary campaign difficulty is kind of like trying to solo a Nightfall without, like, cheesing a solo Nightfall. I know some of those are pretty easy to do, but, like, the good thing about it is there's also a whole bunch of checkpoints. So if you can't finish, like, if you have half an hour, like, you're not going to be able to finish a Legendary mission in a half an hour. It's going to take you a while, and you're going to die a bunch. It's kind of like everything's kind of like Elden Ring now. But, like, you can checkpoint and you come back to it, which is great. And then there's, like, that kind of raid-esque mechanic where once you beat, like, one of those really tough encounter segments, you get, like, 2 chests of just, like, loot flying at you, which is like, oh! So it's like it's not as rewarding as Elden Ring, but, like, there's a lot of benefit to, like, going and doing it and like, you know, trying to do the Legendary difficulty and facing these bad huge threats and, like, you know, getting decent gear. You can get a set of raid ready gear just from the campaigns, right? I think that's what Bungie said.
You get a set of 15-20 gear, and the raids were 15 to 30 recommended. So you're basically raid ready at that point. If you get that and do your pinnacles for the week, you'll be 15-25 easily, which makes you raid ready. And I think that it actually being rewarding is really nice too, because you sink your time into this campaign and then you come out at the other end at the powerful cap, which means you don't then have to grind from previously. If this was 1350 to, like, 1550, you'd come out at, like, 1450, and then you'd have all of that other space to make up before you can actually do anything. And now they've gotten rid of that, but they've also made the mistake of making everything have a much higher entry power cap now. So lots of stuff is like 1530 or 1540, because they obviously expect people to be doing that. And so I think that while Witch Queen is great and I love it, there's still, and I think I mentioned this in my piece about it as well, there's still this, like, reluctance at Bungie to be rewarding for stuff, and to actually let players just have the freedom and stuff. And again, contrasting it to Elden Ring. Elden Ring has infinite freedom, right? You can just do whatever you want, basically. But Bungie, like, you play the game our way within our sandbox. And that's the big difference, I think, and the big contrast in ideology there.
It's almost like a career. Like, you need to, and, like, it's a little bit better getting the gear from, you know, like, the campaign and not having to, like, grind Gambit all the time. But that's kind of like why I've fallen off, because I just don't have the time or the want really to just, like, keep playing so much. It's fun to jump back in though, so I'm like, I think I'll finish the campaign, and, like, I don't think I'm even gonna bother with the raid. I watched a bit of the first run. Well, that was on the weekend, the challenge, so that's good.
Valid Disciple, yeah, and that's a really cool raid design too. They've actually gone a long way in the direction of making it an MMO raid rather than a Destiny raid, where it's like boss stands in one spot for 20 minutes. Now it's boss comes and kicks you in the face. all the time. So it's like they're actually taking positive steps, I think, in that design space too. So.
That's nice. Luke and Ben, you haven't played this at all, have you?
Not at all.
Look,
How dare you?
I tried to get back into Destiny 2 last year. I played it on PlayStation. I tried to buy it on PC. I spent about 20 hours. I'm looking at my Steam list now. I played about 20 hours. That game's a nightmare for people that are either new or returning to the game. Just because, like, I think the term is vaulting. They, like, vault content.
Yeah.
And you trying to play this main story campaign, you just get, like, chunks of it. It just stops all of a sudden. It's like, all right, now go do this other thing. And it's, like, incoherent. And you've got to go look at, like, guides to try and figure out what is next because the thing people are talking about is no longer there. And I just gave up after, like, 20 hours because it just was completely incoherent in terms of what I was supposed to do next. So yeah, I think it feels like a boys club type thing where the people that are in, they're fucking in, but anyone else that's trying to get in, they're like, we don't need you. We're fine. We're good over here.
So Luke, if one game doesn't tell you what to do, it's great. But if another game doesn't tell you what to do, it's bad. Come on, man. Where's your bot? No, I totally get it.
People are telling you to go do this thing, and you go and look for it, and it's like, I'm sorry, like it comes up with the message being like, it's been vaulted. See you later. And you're like, all right, now what? What am I?
Even with Witch Queen, it's like Ikora's like, oh, Mars came back. It's like, wait, where did Mars was like? I knew Mars was vaulted, but it's like Mars was gone and it came back, and we're treating it like that. The other thing is, it's not called Mars on the freaking map. It's called Savathun's Throne World, and like, so I spent like legitimately 5 minutes being like, where the hell is Mars? The mission's on Mars. I can't see Mars. How am I supposed to keep playing this game? And then I realized, oh, it's that. Okay, that one's supposed to be Mars now. I get it. I totally get it. Ben, you've never played Destiny. That's fine, though.
What are you talking about? I played Destiny 2 for ages by my standards, which was like 40 hours. And then I finished it enough, and that was it. Like, why would I ever want to play that again? I finished it. I'm not going to play this like trash that's being released now. Like, I'm done with that.
Well, it's
that's my thought about. That's my thought about every DLC. Like, I've already moved on.
Fair enough.
Like, going back to an X, like, I'm done.
Well, you've moved on to Kirby's a car game. What's it actually called? Forgotten World? No.
I don't know. Forgotten Land or Forgotten Lands. Maybe it's one land, singular.
Kirby's a car game. You did a preview, again, like Tiny Tina, in anticipation of the full release later this month. So what can you tell us about this latest Kirby game?
Well, I played the first world, basically. So somehow there's been like 30 years of Kirby, one of Nintendo's biggest characters, and they've never released like a 3D game. They've all been 2D side-scrollers or weird, we're going to go ride a star down a cliff or something. And that's it. That's all Kirby. So they find on a 3D game-ish. Essentially, it's like, I don't know if any of you guys have played Super Mario 3D Land and World, which is kind of like a mix of 3D and 2D Mario, where it's in a 3D area, but it's kind of still a 2D stage. That's essentially what this is. It's kind of that mixed with Crash Bandicoot. So it's a very linear level. The camera swings around quite a lot, kind of drags you along. Probably more light puzzle solving than platforming, in that if you want to get all the collectibles, you need to figure out how to get them and which enemies you need and which power-ups you want. Very Nintendo-y in that way, very Crash Bandicoot-y in that way. They promise some challenge, but only playing the first world, I can't see it yet. Maybe it's coming later. A little bit on the easy side, but that's what you'd expect from the opening. So, it's very much Kirby as we knew it as a 2D game in a slightly more 3D space. It's not a gigantic Mario 64 total revelation style game. I don't think that's what we're expecting either. Like, it's clearly in, if you kind of rank Nintendo's releases in like the A, B, C tiers, it's very much the B filler game that they've made relatively quickly. But it's fun. It's like it's an easy pick up and play. It's that chunked into small stages. So when you don't have 105 hours to kind of blast through Elden Ring in 2 weeks, you can just play for 10 minutes and still complete a stage. So, I mean, I don't have a child, but I speak like I do. I speak like Tano, who's like, I need to have a game I can pick up and play for 5 minutes and put it down again. So, for some reason, that's what I'm into at the moment. That's why I was playing Mass Effect so much, because it's like you can just play one mission at a time. And that's, for some reason, that's the jam I'm in. And that's what Kirby can give you in a very pink puffball kind of way. So I'm not sure it's for you, Steve. I definitely don't think it's for you, Hamish. Don't know about you, Luke. Yeah, that's what you get. You know what you're getting with a Nintendo game.
Luke's a big
I don't even
Kirby
have
fan.
Switch.
I mean, look at him. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
Loves Kirby.
Yep.
Not so much.
That's me.
Ben, I'm putting you on the spot because I totally forgot, but you did get a code post-release from Nintendo for Pokemon Legends Arceus, however you're supposed to say it. I don't know if you've even had a chance to take a look. My husband made us get it for our Switch. I played it for about 20 minutes, and all the characters did was just wall of text me, and I went, I can't do this, and I put it down. So hopefully you got farther than me.
Not really. As you say, we got it on release day, so what's the point? Yeah, it's. I can see why people like it. Like after 25 years, they've finally done something which is not exactly the same, but it's very. I mean, it got a lot of criticism for looking quite hideous, and it's an ugly game, and not even by Switch standards. Like just by you can see other like similar games on Switch look good. They just didn't care. They kind of phoned that in. The fact that they announced another like mainline Pokemon game a month later surely meant that they didn't have much faith in this. They kind of surprised them a little bit, and they've buried it straight away. So, I mean, classic Nintendo, right? Like here's our big new thing. Sold like 10 million copies straight away, and we're replacing it later this year. So,
well,
crazy.
The newly announced Pokemon game has 2 different colors, Ben. So that's twice as many copies that they'll sell rather than just Arceus or K, whatever it's called, which is just one set of Pokemon game. Anyway, I don't know.
Well, that's why the other one was such a revelation. They did one game, like amazing.
There you go.
Revolutionary concept.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a game that all 4 of us have played out of this entire giant list that we have. I think a lot of us have played the next one, but before we do, like, Ben, we're not a fact-based show, as we love saying, but I'm going to drop a couple quick facts just to set the tone. We didn't put a call to go on Twitch tonight just because I didn't want to have to deal with a whole bunch of random trolls. I think they're all kind of calming down, but Horizon Zero Dawn, not Zero Dawn, that's the first one. Horizon Forbidden West kind of set the stage for some weirdness of late. Job was kind enough to write a review for us. We didn't get a code from Sony, and Job gave the game a 6.5, which on our scale is not that bad, to be honest.
You didn't say his full name.
Pardon?
You didn't say his full name. It's Joab Xbox Gilroy.
Oh, yes. Joab Xbot Gilroy. People seem to take offense that I commissioned Job to write a review because Sony didn't give us a code, as if we were never supposed to write a review because of that, which was weird. We didn't get a code for Gran Turismo 7. Perhaps in response to our Horizon review, I can't confirm or deny that because Sony hasn't returned a phone call or email or text since before the embargo for Horizon, when I sent them a copy of the review early. And so that's kind of setting the tone. I didn't want to have to deal with random people coming on and like demanding we get removed from Metacritic. We've spoken to Metacritic people quite a bit, and they're quite content keeping us on the panel, so don't worry about that. And we'll get into Gran Turismo in a second, but you know, we're professionals. We can remove ourselves from whatever's happening behind the scenes and look at a game on its own merits. So anyway, that's all I think I had to say. Did anybody want to add anything or ask me questions or remind me to say something about this situation before we actually just get into the games and focus on them?
No, you covered it.
Good. All right, then. Horizon Forbidden West. I've played a teeny bit. I know Luke's played some. I think maybe Ben has?
No.
No. Haim? No.
Uh,
All right,
no
Luke, do you want to talk about this and I'll just shut up for once? Or no?
Me?
On the spot. I can talk about it if you want.
I haven't played a whole lot of Horizon Forbidden West, but the stuff that I have played, I've really enjoyed. I like the first game quite a lot. Second game, I don't know if it's doing a whole lot in terms of things that it's bringing that's new to the table. But the core gameplay loop of sort of killing robot dinosaurs and having these mechanical parts that are a part of them and taking, I guess, those parts off of the robot and using them to upgrade your equipment, I think is a really cool idea. And then incorporating your weapons to be like, all right, you need to use acid to hit this specific part, and that'll cause a chain reaction that'll do excessive damage on it. I think in terms of like how that sort of combat is designed is such a cool system that we haven't really seen taken to other games, which I think is really neat. This idea of like, if you shoot off this specific part, then that weapon is damaged or it can't use that tail anymore. Such a cool idea that is not on this scale in other games. So that stuff was really cool. I think the platform is quite clunky. She moves really weirdly in this game, which I don't recall happening as much in the original game, but I just feel like something's off. She just feels like too floaty, or sometimes she'll snap to certain things and other times you just completely miss what you're trying to latch onto. In terms of like I know Job's review on Stevivor had a lot of technical issues in terms of the way it ran, problems with like Aloy sort of being too talkative when you're trying to solve puzzles and things like that. I think they fixed that stuff at this point. So I've had no technical problems. I haven't had any of those issues where she's solving puzzles for you. But the game looks gorgeous. It runs pretty great in terms of 30 versus 60. Like, I like the sort of direction console games are going these days with giving players the choice of whether they want 60 frames per second or they want 30 with 4K. That's a really cool idea. Again, like, I haven't played enough to sort of dive into it. Like, I don't think it is, for me, from what I played, like a game of the year material. But for me, like, game of the year material is something that elevates the genre and does something that we haven't seen before. I'm just not seeing that from Horizon. But I also don't think it's a bad game. I'm still enjoying it. I still think the combat is really fun. I haven't seen the problems that the combat was as, I guess, streamlined that Job had in his review, but I'm also not as far into the game as other people at this point. So yeah, I'm enjoying my time. I'm having fun with it.
Yeah, I've enjoyed what I've played so far. I thought the first one was kind of like, it's like Elden Ring. It's not. It's kind of like Assassin's Creed was to Assassin's Creed 2. Like, you could kind of see, like, oh yeah, they're putting this stuff together, and this could go really well. And I do agree with you, Luke, in like the picking and choosing bits to try to tear off to do upgrades and things. But that's kind of where I like it in some areas, but that kind of layered system is everywhere within the game. So there's like different skill trees. So it's not just one skill tree. It's, like, do you want one of these 4 skill trees, which gives you, an item to, do hunting with, or to this with, or this with, or this with. And then you've got all these weapons with different status effects, and you got to like try to juggle, which one had electricity, because I need electricity for this. So there's all these layers upon layers that, unless you're really dedicated and getting across that, you just kind of forget, and you're like, I don't know, I'm just going to use the main bow that I got at the very, very start. I haven't played in probably a week, to be honest, but I was getting, and I think I put something on Twitter, like the black screen occasionally. It's like, and did you have that issue, Luke?
I haven't seen it at all.
So you guys on the Gap had a theory that maybe it's because your PlayStation is from the States, and I'm like, I kind of want to investigate that, because I was getting the same thing that Luke was getting. If you go somewhere and you kind of spin the camera, it's like the game is trying to stream something that you can't see, but then you've turned your attention to it, and it kind of just like futzes out for a second. It doesn't, like, just kind of like just goes, oh, and like blinks basically. So the screen just goes black for a second and then comes back. It's like, oh. So I'm not sure if that's been fixed or not. I haven't checked. And I haven't had a lot of issues with climbing, but there's like cauldrons, which are kind of like, I don't know, like Breath of the Wild temple kind of things. And they're supposed to be kind of like climbing and traversal puzzles, but I've found, like, quite literally, if you just hold up on the joystick, Aloy will just kind of go exactly where she needs to. Even if there's like time things that kind of move in and out for you to try to like clamber onto, like, you just hold up, and when when it's time to do it, she'll just do it for you. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know how far I've gotten in the story, but there was a section where you get to a main story point and there's 3 different things to go and try to obtain, and it shows the levels that you need to kind of be at to try to do the 3 missions. And I picked the hardest one first because I'm like, I'm not really having trouble, I'm a little bit underpowered, and I went to that third, the highest level one first. And I'm not sure if I accidentally like skipped a cutscene at some point, but like the story, I think, kind of progressed as if you were like doing it in the order that they kind of wanted you to. So I feel like I missed something. Like I kind of just went straight to 3 instead of hitting 1 and 2 first. But I don't know. That could just be me. It's like it's a competent open world game which could, you could invest a lot of hours in if you so chose, and that's absolutely fine if that's what you choose to do. There you go. I think that's it.
Yeah.
All right. We're putting some finishing touches, maybe. I don't know. Hamish's eyebrows just like shot up. We're gonna talk right now, maybe first impressions of Gran Turismo 7 ahead of our final review. But I think I think this one's all you, Ham. So, what are you thinking
Just
of?
read out your review. Like, give us the whole thing now. I know you've got it.
Yeah, my review. Definitely have started writing that. Don't tell Steve. My thoughts. It's basically Pokemon for car people, right? Because the point of Gran Turismo isn't, I'm going to be the very best driver ever. I'm going to like win some world championship. It's, I want to have all of the cars and I want to be able to drive them in races when I want to drive them in races. And that, I think it does really well. And I think it does, like the simulation aspects of driving most of the way there. It's still like, it's pretty good the way the driving feels. I don't really see much with the DualShock controller. Like I don't feel anything terribly interesting with the triggers.
Haptic feedback.
Whatever they call it. I'm not a big fan of the new controllers. It's because I'm an Xbot, I guess. But so I've been playing mostly on my wheel, and it's great. It feels great. Like I really enjoy just cruising around the tracks, doing stuff like that. And those core concepts, collecting a bunch of cars, like driving your dream cars, driving, really, really good. And I haven't done much of the multiplayer yet either, but from my understanding, it's very much like GT Sport. And that was like really well lauded for having a really robust and really long tail multiplayer support where you could just jump on, do some races, jump off kind of thing. And that's all there here too. And I think it's really, really good. There's still a lot of kind of what I would call tentatively the Japanese game weirdness about aspects of it. The main menu, you might have seen it, is like a bunch of little locations that you go into, and so you have to load into it and then do stuff in there and pop back out. And so you're popping in and out of menus a lot, and it's not that quick. And let's say you need a particular car for a particular race. You have to jump in, see what it is. You can change there, but if you don't have an exactly teed up car, you have to jump out, go into a different menu, do a bunch of stuff, jump out, go into another menu, make sure it's... And there's lots and lots of like that really chunky flow of the game. And so what it does great is the things that it should do great, and what it's not doing so great is the other stuff. But I like it, so...
I don't know why, but so often lately I've seen people trying to compare it to like Forza Horizon 5, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like we should be comparing it to whichever number Forza Motorsport is out, eh? And almost like I've seen you and Joab, Xbox Gilroy, talking about like the menus and like so many menus. Like that almost seems like another good comparison would be to like Microsoft Flight Sim, because it seems like there's all these menus because you're setting up all these conditions and all these things and bits and bobs, because it's trying to be like hardcore simulator, especially like if you're a guy playing with a racing wheel. Like you don't have a racing wheel if you're not invested in racing games.
A big nerd.
Yeah.
Well, you go, man.
I'll tell you why they're comparing it to Forza Horizon, because like the timing by Sony here is excellent. You can't buy Forza Motorsport at the moment. Somehow, probably fair to say that Forza kind of went ahead of GT just because they didn't release a game in the proper series for like 9 years. And the last one was a PS3 game just after the PS4 came out, against the Xbox One, which launched with Forza Motorsport 5. It was such a weird time for it to come out that I remember reviewing it and thinking, normally you'd play a game like this and be like marvel at how good it looks. That's the whole point of like a racing sim for non-racing fans, just to admire it basically. But it didn't look great because it was a last gen game at the time. And so from going to like a terrible launch period, they've absolutely nailed this one. They've released it when there's no Forza competitor at all. They've gotten ahead of whatever Turn 10's doing. And now people are just looking at what's on the market and seeing Xbox's racing game, which has nothing to do with this, but it's the closest thing to compare to. So that's why, and it's probably fair by those people. Like, there is no Forza Motorsport for the first time ever when Gran Turismo 7 comes out.
There you go.
And I think that comparisons to Horizon are totally unfair because they're totally different games, right?
Yeah.
It's like comparing Burnout with Assetto Corsa. It's just not at all the same. So
It's like comparing Luke playing Elden Ring to me playing Elden Ring.
That's not
everything
like
is
that.
Elden Ring.
From my experience, I didn't like Forza Horizon. What was the new one?
5.
It's just like I couldn't get into it. The biggest problem for me was the fact that I'm like 40 minutes in and I get a wheel spin and I get like a $2 million car and I'm like, all right, I'm set. Cool, thank you. And then every time I did a race, they're like, here's the Mazda 6 for you to drive, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm in this $2 million Maserati. I'm good, thank you, for the rest of this game. And the sense of progression for me was lost. And that's all I'll say about that. But yeah, I did not enjoy. I think it's a phenomenal game, Forza Horizon 5, but I just didn't enjoy my time with it. It wasn't for me. I lost that sense of accomplishment of racing and feeling like I was earning something as opposed to just spinning a wheel and being like, here's a random car that you got and have fun.
I'm glad you got a random car because I just kept getting like pairs of shoes for my avatar, whom I never see because he's in the car driving the car. But
it didn't make you drive faster?
No, well, might have. I don't know. I didn't check the buff, but
yeah, racing gloves.
So expect Hamish's full thoughts on that ahead of a whole bunch of other things, ahead of Kirby for sure, and probably ahead of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands reviews, which will also be on the site eventually. Ben, you wanted to talk about your 15 minutes. You're really good at really short gaming experiences of late. I guess from what Twitter is telling me, the incredibly hyped Xbox exclusive CrossfireX. So take it away.
This Remedy's new game, I'm pumped.
That's it. Remedy's game, which they haven't mentioned anything about, and I'm surprised they even put their name on. So we played like the beta like 2 years ago or something. It was ages ago, and it felt kind of crummy then. And this final game from the one match I played is exactly the same. Like, they haven't changed anything. It feels super underdone and dodgy, and that's the good bit. Like, the campaign they've added on, which is made by Remedy, is atrocious. Like, first of all, there are no achievements, so why am I even playing this campaign? Second of all, it feels like someone saw a COD game, and then, you know, when you go buy like a dodgy action figure in a knockoff shop that's tried to make it and they've seen it and tried to make their own version, and it's like that gaming equivalent. Like, it's trying to be COD, but the movement, it's so dodgy, it's so clunky, it feels like someone's never played a game. They've just kind of watched one be played and then they've tried to make it, and then they have a helicopter crash through the ceiling, like, because we've seen that. But like, it's just, I haven't played a game by a reputable developer that plays this poorly in a long time. So had I reviewed it, I think a 2 on the Survivor scale, maybe a 1 even. Like, it's a shocker.
Ooh.
Terrible.
Maybe we should get that up so people just shut up for once. It's trying to look like COD, but it's trying to play like Counter-Strike. And like, I don't know if you can be a game that's, and it's not new, I guess. It's like it's like a big Eastern like phenomenon, but like it's too late for it to try to appeal to Western audiences, I think. And Luke was nodding. I'll be quiet because you might know more about this than I do. I've played like 2 matches of Counter-Strike in my life.
No, I have no idea. I just hear that it's like big in a different region, and it's the type of thing where they try and bring Lost Ark is huge right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so trying to hit that sort of same mark, but maybe not doing it as well.
Yeah. It has achievements. They're really easy, like get headshots, win matches. So you know, if nothing else, it's free. It's on Game Pass. You can grab it. There was a huge issue where like the Remedy campaign wasn't even available to Game Pass people, but they fixed that. I got all the achievements before the Remedy game was available, so I just uninstalled it and went, nah, I'm good. It doesn't sound like it's good enough to try. Thanks very much.
Yeah. I will say the multiplayer feels a lot better than the single player. So what I was just hating on is all about that campaign, which is just terrible.
Well, there you go. Is there any other game that any of us have been playing that you want to talk about, or have we talked about enough games for one installment of the Friendly Fire Show? I think
that's it.
Yes.
I've played a lot, but never
Oh yeah, I know. You guys like your 7-hour podcast, Luke, but we're a tight hour in this joint, and we don't usually swear, but for fuck's sake, you did it anyway, so we're good. I swear, I feel naughty. Hamish, what are we expecting from you, or what have you done? Plug yourself, dude. However you want.
I've written for Stevivor too much lately, and now I need a break. So that's what you're getting from me.
Nice. Invoice, please. Luke, what about you?
Yeah.
You can find me over at thegapodcast.com. I do a weekly video game show with Job, Xbox Gilroy. We talk about games in depth every week for 2.5 hours. This week was Elden Ring, Puzzle Quest 3, Dead by Daylight, Aperture Desk Job, and Gran Turismo 7. On top of that, I just want to quickly mention all the stuff that's happening in the Ukraine right now with Russia. It's terrible. Shout out to EA, CD Projekt, Take-Two, Activision, Microsoft, Epic, Sony. All those people stepped up,
McDonald's,
pulled the sales. Nintendo was half-assed about it. They sort of were like, well, our sales application got pulled, so I guess we're not selling stuff out here anymore. But yeah, it's cool to see all the gaming community sort of step together and do something about it, which is awesome.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to throw a Stevivor plug on that, but there's we've been running a post with all the statements from people showing who's pulled sales. At the very top of the list, there's a whole bunch of organizations that if you want to try to donate some money to, it's not an exhaustive list, but it's a start. And read up about it, try to figure out what you want to do, how you can help personally, and that's the best thing you can do. Well said, Luke.
Yeah.
Ben, how about you, my friend?
Well, nothing for me really, but I am disappointed that you didn't have this week or this month or this year or whatever in delays. That's our only regular segment, and you haven't done it. So,
Forspoken got delayed. What else? I don't know. That might be it.
Gotham Knights has a release date. I'm excited for that.
Yeah. When is that?
This week in
October?
Release date.
No.
25th
October
of October.
25th, I think it was.
And
22nd?
completely to sidetrack, have you played the Ring stuff, Luke, in Dead by Daylight?
I have.
Is it
I
good?
played a
Is it
little
good?
bit. I like Dead by Daylight. I think I'm the highest Metacritic review for that. So, yes, I enjoy it.
Good. I'll have to jump in. You're a killer, aren't you? Normally.
I'm a killer main, but I'm playing a lot more Survivor recently because of the matchmaking can become a problem.
I'm trying to get Ben in that. I should try to get Hamish in. It's really good. It's super good.
Everyone should play it.
You got me sucked in. I love it. It's so good. And that's right, AU on things and Stevivor, and stay out of my DMs unless you actually are not a jerk. That'd be great. Thanks so much. You can find us hopefully every fortnight, and we'll see how we go with Twitch. Have a good time. Peace out. Love you, Job. Sorry that you're such an insufferable Xbox fan, and goodbye.